All right, so we're going to end the first day of the reproductive system by comparing and contrasting men and women. And so basically we're going to take a lot of what we've already discussed and then just talk about how they're similar, how they're different. Okay, and so we've talked about spermatogenesis, we've talked about oogenesis and folliculogenesis. Now we're just going to compare timing and things like that. So when it comes to men and women with spermatogenesis and oogenesis, they're very different. Okay, and so with spermatogenesis, it starts at puberty. Oogenesis begins before birth, right? Women are born with all their egg cells before they're actually born. Okay, and when you tell that to a 12-year-old kid that's just had their maturation talk, that can blow their mind. All right, so when puberty occurs, which is kind of where all of a sudden we have this transition, release of hormones that basically make it possible for reproduction to occur, men start producing sperm, women start releasing egg cells. Men produce millions of these every day. Women generally produce one each month. It can be more, but more often than not, it's one. With men, once they start, they don't stop. It does decline a little bit. With women, they stop producing mature egg cells at menopause, which is anywhere between 45 to 55 years old, give or take. Men never stop. Women stop with development of egg cells from the time they're born until puberty, and then every month, or not every month, but if ovulation to fertilization occurs. Men, this is very simple, very quick, 64 days. Women, this takes years because it starts before they're born. So like I said, puberty is just the time of life when individuals become sexually mature. In other words, they can have a baby, or they can participate in the formation or the creation of a baby. With women, this is caused by the release of FSH, LH, estrogen, and progesterone. FSH stimulates the development of the ova and the follicle. Okay, LH is what causes ovulation. And if you remember from our last lecture, luteinizing hormone causes release of estrogen, which causes release of more luteinizing hormone. That's actually an example of a positive feedback loop. Okay, estrogen also helps develop or cause the development of secondary sex characteristics that we'll get to here in a couple of minutes. Progesterone causes the growth of the endometrium, okay, the lining of the uterus, and it also prevents the release of FSH and LH. As we mentioned, I think in the last video, if you've got one fertilized egg, if a woman has one fertilized egg, they don't want the release of another egg because they don't want, and they can't really handle two fertilized eggs that are at different points in time. Okay, that can happen. My brother's sister-in-law had that happen, and I believe they lost one of the babies when that happened, just because of the issues. All right, so when men hit puberty, they release FSH and LH. This causes the production of sperm and ultimately the release of testosterone, as well as the development of secondary sex characteristics. Inhibin and testosterone inhibit the release of FSH and LH, just like estrogen does and inhibin do for women. So the last thing are secondary sex characteristics, okay? And so what are secondary sex characteristics? Well, the long story, or the easy answer is they're just physical characteristics that help distinguish between men and women, but are not directly involved in reproduction, okay? And so with women, that's generally large breasts, wide hips, small waist, and a difference in fat distribution. Whereas with men, they have facial hair, they're usually larger, they have an Adam's apple, broad shoulders, larger muscle mass. Okay, we refer to these as secondary sex characteristics. So none of these things are involved actually with the act of reproduction, but they distinguish the sexes. And so with that, whoops, hit too many buttons. Here are the three things I hope you can do at the end of this lecture.